I told you, horse, I am perfectly hydrated and ready for this stream. Oh, hello! Greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, Julian 20. Hello there, hello there. Hi, hi, Julian 20. Oh my goodness, I almost overstepped my bounds, didn't I? Hello there, all you marvelous, wonderful scholars, wherever you are, whenever you are across this wonderful, marvelous omniverse. Oh, excuse me for a little bit. I was just discussing with Horace before we started the stream. There's been a very bad infestation of silence weed, of which I unfortunately am slightly allergic to. So we're talking about my voice is a little bit off today, whatever it is. So if you hear me a little bit more croaky than usual, that's why. I might also cough a little bit more. But Horace has, with the help of Ovid and Virgil, gotten me plenty of water to drink. So it should be okay tonight, I think, which I am very grateful for, Horace. Thank you so much. It just takes a while. My throat is very, very dry. So, my dear scholars, how are you this fine morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are? How are you all doing? I hope you are well. Fantastically good. Wonderful to hear. Wonderful to hear. I'm so glad. Oh my goodness gracious. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Oh, I just realized I almost forgot to to post myself. I forgot to post that I was streaming in a few places. I was wondering why things were so quiet. Oh my goodness gracious. Shows you where my mind is. Oh. So hopefully also, unlike last time, we uh we won't have any connection issues. Um Virgil said that he managed to fix whatever was wrong. I'm trusting you, Virgil. So hopefully with any luck, things won't be problematic. Julian 20 going to the state fair tomorrow for the second time. Oh, wonderful. I hope you have a marvelous time there, Julian 20. I still don't know what a state fair is, but yes, I hope it all goes well for you. Oh my goodness gracious. Julian 20, oh yes, we will. Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Ah, yes. Where was I? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm just trying to I tried to keep myself hydrated before this. Oh, yes. But yes, I digress. So, my dear scholars, tonight we continue our reading of Russell Thorndike's Dr. Sin. When we last left our story, you know, I mentioned this problem before, and I'm going to say it again, actually. The book's plot is incredibly straightforward, isn't it? I mean, there's twists and turns in it, but it is. I keep trying to think of all these elaborate things that are happening, but they aren't really elaborate. Julian 20 and some goofy words. That I hope that won't happen again. That was interesting. That was not what I was expecting. But yeah, the can't talk. Apparently can't talk tonight. I blame the silent weed. Um, the story's fairly straightforward, isn't it? So far, we've had a couple murders. Um, the mysterious Dr. Sin, who seems to have some inkling of what's going on. Mr. Mipps, who is the sexton and also the funerary director, who also seems unusual. Um, our main focus in this story seems to be Jerry Jerk, and I have said this before, yes, that is his real name. Jerry Jerk and the captain of a ship which has just arrived. Well, was it a ship? No, he didn't. Yeah, did he arrive? No, he didn't arrive by ship. No, 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 he walked in. The captain with his crew who are on the hunt for smugglers in Romney Marsh, which is where this takes place. Jerry Jerk and the captain suspect something is going on, although Jerry Jerk's in it mostly because he wants to hang his school teacher. And I mean that in a literal term. He had a gallows built on top of a small plot of land, a very small plot of land, that Jerry Jerk bought because he wants to hang the school teacher. He's a very messed up child. Um, but so far, I'm trying to remember what actually happened last time. The uh, the captain suspects Dr. Sin of something and has pulled Jerry into the whole mess of it. There has also been this runaway sailor. A I don't want to use the word they use, but he was used for tracking the smugglers' goods at the time, and he has apparently been killing people in the village, and it's just the whole thing is very strange. Private Maverick sure sounds crazy, doesn't it? Oh, hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome, and yes, it does. Oh, you've reached those 7 stream watch streaks. Thank you, Private Maverick. Congratulations. Ah, but yeah, it's a very nightmarish story if you think about it. We haven't really had much in terms of, say, there's been apparently marsh ghouls who have been sighted on the moors, but we haven't really seen much of them in the story. They were seen once so far, although we saw another one apparently, and it just the whole thing is very nightmarish. There isn't really much going on in terms of, again, it's a straightforward plot. There's not much in terms of like a side plot or anything like that, but there's a lot of atmosphere. And I suppose, oh, looking at the time, we should probably start, shouldn't we? So then, my dear scholars, shall we continue our journey through Romney Marsh and learn what is the mystery of Dr. Sin? Moo. It's kind of remarkable that this story would have been perfect for Halloween too. Yulin 20, yes please. All right. Well, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking. Dim the lights if you wish, and we will continue our reading of Dr. Sin by Russell Thorndike. Also, for those who missed, if you can tell by my voice is a little croaky. It's mostly due to allergies, so I will try and read as best I can. I might not do the voices as well as I usually do, but we'll see. Chapter 23, A Young Recruit. Talk about an earthly child, and there he is, said Mrs. Waggetts, entering the sanded parlor with Sexton Mipps. And eat! Nothing like eating to increase your fat, is there, Mr. Mipps? But there, I suppose you never had no fat on you to speak of, 'cause if ever a man was one of Pharaoh's lean kin, you was. It's hard work what's kept me thin, Mrs. Waggetts, replied the sinister sexton. Hard work and schemin'. A little of both would do our young Jerry here no harm. As to work, replied Jerry, gulping down more food, there ain't been no complaints against me, I believes, Mrs. Waggetts. Certainly not, Jerry, responded that lady affably. That's good, said Jerk. Then turning to the sexton, he added, and as to scheming, Mr. Sexton, how do you know I don't scheme? Some folks are so took up with their own schemes that perhaps they don't get time to notice what others are doing. I has lots of schemes, I has. I thinks about them by day and dreams of them at night. And they gives you a rare knack of putting away Mrs. Waggetts' victuals, I'm a noticing, dryly remarked the sexton. Law, I'm sure he's a hearty welcome to anything I've got, returned the landlady. It's fair cheers me up to see him eat well, and he'll be a fine man he'll be making in a year or so. Ay, that I will, cried young Jerk. And when I'm a hangman, I ain't a going to forget my own friend. I'll come along from the town every Sunday, I will, and we'll go and hear Parson Sin preach just the same as we does now. And Mr. Mipps will show us into the pew, and everybody will turn round and stare at us and say, "Why, there goes Hangman Jerk." And then we'll come back and have a bit of supper together, providing I don't have to sup with the squire at the courthouse. That won't be likely, interrupted Mipps. And after we've had supper, I'll tell you stories about horrible sights I've seen in the week, and terrible things I've done, and it'll go hard with Sexton Mipps to keep even with me with his yarns, I tells you. Well, again, that kid is really messed up. He is absolute nightmare fuel. Ha ha! Chuckled Mipps. Strike me dead and knock me up a slipshod in a buckram coffin if this lad Jerry Jerk don't please me. Look at him, Mrs. Waggetts. Will you do me the favour of looking at him hard? Though don't let it put you off your feet, Jerry. Why, at your age, I had just such notions as you've got. But there, I've never had your advantages. Why, at 13 years of age, I was as grown up in my fancies as this Jerk. Sweetmeats to devil, eh, Jerry? For it's some who grows above such garbage from their first rocking in the cradle. This Jerry Jerk is a man. Why, bless you, he's more a man than some of them what's a doing man's work. That's so, said Mrs. Waggetts, enthusiastically backing the sexton up. And don't you forget that he owns a bit of land on the marsh, and so be a marshman proper. I doesn't forget it, said Mipps, and I've been telling certain folks how things were going with Hangman Jerk, and I've made 'em see that, although only a child in regard to age, he ain't no child in his deeds. And so they agree with me, Mrs. Waggetts, that I'd owned be that I owned be unjust not to let him have full marshman's privileges, and I'll go bail that Jerk won't disgrace me by not living up to them privileges. Perhaps I won't, Mr. Sexton, when I knows what them privileges are. You listen and I'll tell you, answered the sexton. Jerry, cried the sexton, you're just one of my own hearts. You ought to have lived in my days when I was a lad, gone to sea, and got amongst the interesting gentlemen like I did. Aye, they was interesting, and reckless they was too. They was rough, none rougher, but I don't grudge 'em all the kicks they gave me. Why, it made a man o' me, young Jerk. I tell you, Master Jerry, that bad as them sea adventures was, they did some good, for they made a man o' me, Jerry. I should never have been the sort of man I is now if them ruffians hadn't kindly knocked the nonsense out of me. So, Mipps more or less just told Jerry that being abused is a good thing. Explains a few things about him. I mean, I just completely disagree, of course, on what Mips is saying. And we can guess what the interesting gentlemen that Mips is talking about are. Can't we, my dear scholars? Usually, shouldn't you, though? Said Jerry. Never! Never! Said the sexton with conviction. But mind you, he went on, you has advantages what I never had. I had to learn all the tricks o' my trade, and I had to buy my experience. There was no kind friend to teach me any lesson, no benevolent old cove what owned my pay my for my experience. No, I had to buy and learn for myself. But my stars and garters, afore they done with me, I had 'em all scared o' me. Even England hisself didn't relish my tantrums, and when I was in a regular blinder, why, I solemnly believes he was scared froze o' me. There was only one man my superior in all the time I sailed them golden seas, and that man was Clegg hisself. I served on his ship, you know, Jerk. I was carpenter, master carpenter, mind you, to Clegg, to no less a man than Clegg, and on Clegg's own ship it were too. She was called the Imogene. I never knew why she was called so. It sounds a high fiddadely sort o' name for a pirate ship, but then Clegg was a regular gentleman to his tastes. Why, I remember him sitting so peaceful on the roundhouse roof one day, a reading of Virgil, and not in the vulgar tongue neither. He was a reading in it in the foreign language, what it was first wrote in, so he told me. In other words, he was reading it in Latin. And you couldn't somehow get a hold on the fact that this benign looking cove what was sitting so peacefully on the roundhouse roof, one day a reading of Virgil, and not in the vulgar tongue neither. He was a reading it in the foreign language what it was first wrote in, so he told me. Okay, my dear scholars, the copy of the book I have actually wrote they somehow printed the same paragraph twice in a row. I was wondering what was going on for a moment there. Excuse me. Again, silence weed, allergies, the cough, trying to deal with it. I apologize, my dear scholars. I'm doing the best I can. I'll probably have some tea after this. That might be nice for my throat. Where was I? Oh, yes. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Yumi. Welcome. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. And you couldn't somehow get hold of the fact that that benign-looking cove what was sitting there so peaceful a reading learned books had maybe half an hour before strung up a mutineer to the yard arm, or made some old cove walk the dirty plank. So not just any plank, a dirty plank. He was a rum 'un, and no mistake was that damned old pirate Clegg. But I'll pull my forelock, supposing I had one, all day long to old Clegg. Excuse me. Even were I the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he only an out at heel sea dog. Now with England it was different. Though I'll own he could beat the devil hisself for blasphemy, I wasn't afraid o' him. He was one you could size up like. But Clegg, oh, he was different. Show me the man what could size up Clegg, and I'll make him leveller of Romney Marsh. Aye, King of England. Supposing I had the power. There was only one man what I ever seed what made Clegg turn a hair, and that was a rascally priest. But then he had devil powers. He had, and the sexton relapsed into silence. His listeners watched him, and watching, they saw him shiver. What old scene of horror was flashing before that curious little man's mind? Ah, who could tell? No living body, for the crew of the Imogen had all died violent deaths one after another in different lands. And since Clegg was hanged at Rye, why, Mipps was the only veteran left. "Pray get on with the business in hand, Mr. Mipps," said Mrs. Waggetts, "for though I declare I could listen to you all philosophizing and moralizing all day long, yon Jerk is all agog, ain't you, Jerry?" "That's so," replied Jerk. "Please get on, Mr. Sexton." "I will," said Mr. Mipps. "You may wonder now, Jerry Jerk, how it has been possible for an adventurer like I be, or rather was one time, when I was a handsome fine standing young fellow aboard the Imogen. I say you may fall to wondering how I come to be a sexton, and to live the dull dreary life of a villager. Well, I'll tell you now, straight out, man to man. And when I've told you, why, you, excuse me, fingers, why, you'll understand all the mystery what I'm a getting at." The sexton smote his hand upon the table so that all the breakfast dishes jumped into different positions on the table. Table used twice. Oh, Thorndyke. And the two words he said as his fist crashed down were these: "I couldn't." "Couldn't what?" asked Jerk, whose anxiety for the breakfast dish's safety had driven the context of the sexton's speech from his mind. "Couldn't live a humdrum life after the hijinks I had at sea." "But you did, Mr. Sexton, and what's more, you're doing it now," replied young Jerk. "And very prettily you can act, can't you, Hindman Jerk?" said Mr. Mipps, winking. "I declare you're a master in the way of pretending. Well, pretending all very well, but it's often plain spoken truth what serves as a safer weapon for roguish fellows. And it's plain spoken truth I'm a gonna use to you, believing in my heart that if ever there was a roguish fellow living, and one after my own heart, why, Hangman Jerk is that fellow." "Please get on, Mr. Sexton," said Jerry, feeling very important. "Yes, get on," repeated Mrs. Waggetts, "for I'm a longing to hear how he takes it." "Can you doubt I don't?" replied Mipps. "I bet my head he'll take it as a man. Won't you, Jerry Jerk, eh?" "I'll tell you what I knows what it is," replied the boy. "Why, what a talky old party I've become. Time was when I never uttered a word. But do. Ah, I was one to do. And much. And quick I did too." "We knows that very well, thank you, Mr. Sexton," said Jerry. "That is, we knows it if we knows your word can be relied upon." "You may lay to that," said Mipps. "And you may lay that in our future dealings together. You can depend on me a standing by you, as long as you lay the straight course with me."
"I'll take your word for that," responded Jerk. "Now, perhaps you will get on?"
"Well," said the sexton. I must begin with the marsh, the Romney Marsh. No one knows better than you do that she's a queer sort of a corner, is Romney Marsh. I've seen you a prowlin' and a nosin' about on her. You scented excitement, you did, on the marsh. You smelt out a mystery. And like a lad of spirit, you wanted to find out the meaning of it all. Very natural. I should have done the same when I was a lad. Well, now, the whole business is this. The marsh don't approve of folk a nosin' and a prowlin' after her secrets. See? And the sexton's face grew suddenly fierce. All the lines of quizzical humor vanished from around that peculiar mouth, and left a face of diabolical cruelty, cunning, and malice. But Jerk was not easily unnerved, or put out of countenance. There was something about Mipps that put him on his mettle. He liked Mipps, but he liked to keep even with him, for his own self-respect, which was very great. In some things Jerry Jerk was most inordinately proud.
Oh, the marsh don't approve, eh? And who or what might be the power on the marsh to tell you so?
The great ruler of the marsh, the man with no name who runs his schemes and makes his sons prosper. Excuse me.
That'll be the squire then, said Jerry promptly, for he's the lever of marsh Scots, ain't he? He makes the laws for the marshmen, don't he?
He does that, certainly, agreed the sexton. But whether or not he's the power what brings luck to the marshmen, neither you nor me nor nobody can tell. Sufficient for us that the marsh is ruled by a mysterious power, what brings gold and despair to the marshmen's pockets.
Ah, then,
Said Jerry with his eyes blazing.
then I was right. There are smugglers on the marsh.
There are, said the sexton, and it's wealthy men they be, though you'd never guess at it, and daring adventurous cusses they be, and rollicking good times they gets, and no danger to speak of, 'cause the whole blessed concern is run by a master brain what never seems to make mistakes. 'Twas this same master brain what agreed that you should share the privileges of the marsh, and I was ordered to recruit you.
Oh, and what'll be required of me?
Asked Jerk.
Supposing thinks about it. Supposing I thinks about it.
You'll be given a horse, and you'll ride with the marsh witches, learn their trade, and be apprehended to their calling.
And how do you know I won't blab and get you and your fellows the rope?
Asked Jerry bravely. Because we've sized you up, we has, and we don't suspect you of treachery. If we did, it wouldn't much matter to us, though I should be right sorry to have been disappointed in you. For I declare I don't know what I took to a young man like I as to you. You're my fancy, you are, Jerry, just like I was at your age. You know, after everything in every chapter we've experienced with Jerry, I kind of wouldn't trust Jerry. And there's a reason for it. Usually, yeah. Jerry, if you look at the rest of the chapters, these earlier chapters, is very driven by his one goal in mind, which essentially is to be a hangman, to be hangman jerk. That is his big goal, and his further goal is to hang his teacher, as gruesome as that is. It obsesses him to all other extent. Now, why wouldn't I trust Jerry? Because I feel that Jerry, as a character, would be more than willing to betray anyone if it'll get him closer to that goal. Jerry is not a trustworthy person. He is a child. And we've had a hint earlier about his lack of trustworthiness, which the smugglers really should have looked at. But then they wouldn't know. But we, the reader, knew. And that little preview was earlier when Jerry was told by Dr. Sin, don't tell anyone of what you saw. Don't talk to the schoolmaster. Don't hint at the schoolmaster that you were a witness at the murder of the doctor. Spoilers, I know. Which Jerry, of course, agreed with. The problem is the moment that Jerry had an opening by which he could torment the schoolmaster, hint that he was a witness, Jerry took it, even though he had made a solemn promise to Sin that he wouldn't. And that sort of, I think, hints at the sort of person Jerry is. Jerry is not someone who can be trusted with secrets. He really is someone who will backstab you if it'll bring him closer to what he wants. He's not a trustworthy fellow. In a way, that makes it ironic with Mips too, because Mips says that Jerry reminds him of his youth. So this is just me theorizing. Maybe what Russell is trying to say is the whole idea that it hints that Mips himself is not a trustworthy person either. He is a man like Jerry who keeps secrets but on his own terms. Which makes the whole thing interesting, but I think they're making a mistake here by trusting Jerry.
Yes, but just supposing that I did disappoint you, Mr. Sexton. It's well to hear all sides, you know.
Aye, it's well, and wise too, and I'll tell you, if it was to your advantage to betray us to that captain, perhaps, well, I dare say you'd do it,
I don't know,
said Jerk.
all depends. Perhaps I might, though. You never knows.
No, you never knows. Quite right. But you know one thing, that go where you would, or hide where you like, we'd get you in time. And when we did get you, it wouldn't be short shrift for you. You may lay to that,
I dare say,
said Jerry.
unless, of course, I got you first.
You'd have a good number to get, my lad, laughed the sexton. But it's no use a hargering like this. You won't betray us when it don't serve your turn to do so, and it won't do that, 'cause we has very fine prospects open for you. Why, we can set you in the way of rolling in a coach before we've done with you, and who knows years hence, when you're older than you be now, who knows but what you might not succeed to the headship? If anything was to happen to the great chief, what's to prevent you from taking his place, eh?
You're smart, ain't you? There's no gainsaying that, now is there, Mrs. Waggetts? No, indeed,
replied that lady. Oh, so he does know that Jerry might be someone who might rightfully betray them. Interesting.
Then take my tip, the straight tip of an old gentleman of fortune, and you join us. What'll I have to do, and what is it I'm a joining, though? Asked the boy. The great scheme of wool running, said Mr. Mipps. Ah, sighed Jerry. I thought as much. And what am I to do? Always supposing that I'm willing to join. We've a vacancy in the horsemen. A man short, you see, though we've got the horse. It's Mr. Rash's horse, but we've turned out the schoolmaster and kept his horse. He weren't one of us, you see, so we found that we didn't want him no more.
Ooh,
You killed him!
cried the hangman, starting up. Yeah, that would upset Jerry because Jerry so badly wants to hang Rash.
I didn't say that, retorted the sexton. I merely remarked that we didn't want him no more. And now just give me your attention. I've every reason to believe, and so has the great chief that I work for, that you are getting very thick with that swab of a king's captain. Well, now, don't go a suddenly a giving him the cold shoulder, do you see? You can't drop a friend all at once like a hot potato without exciting the gossip of folk. So remember what I says, and keep civil to him. But it's my opinion that after tonight you'll know what sides you be on. For once get the thrill of the demon ride, and you'll not want to get dismissed. Besides, getting dismissed by our chief ain't exactly what you might term a pleasant form of being entertained. And what do I do, Mr. Sexton? You'll get told all in good time. Well, what do the demon riders do? Persisted the boy. Frighten folk from the marsh when the ponies are trodden under the wool packs. And where do the wool packs come from? From nearly every farm on the marsh. And they put it all in packs and send 'em down to the coast? That's the ticket, my lad. Pack 'em all up on ponies and bring back coffins full of spirit from France. Coffins full of spirit from France, repeated the amazed boy. Yes, that's why I'm a coffin maker. What would you expect to see inside a nailed up coffin, eh? What, a dead un, said the boy. Exactly. And as folks ain't particular fond of amusing themselves with a sight of dead uns, they lets my coffin alone, do you see? And the spirit is treated with every respect, and is allowed to go on its way very snug, and all knocked up most particular solid. And the head of it's all the squire, isn't it? I never said so, replied the sexton quickly. But the less you think and say on that subject, the better. So don't you hamper your young career with thinking about it. All you've got to do is to obey. And what do I get out of it? Gold, and the fun of your life. And when do I start? Tonight. Tonight? Faltered Jerk, much relieved, for he had thought of his promise to help the captain, and was greatly thankful that the dates had not clashed. At 12:30 at Old Tree Cottage. But don't go to the coffin shop side. Tap at the back kitchen window. 12:30, you say? That's the time, answered Mipps, holding out his hand and seizing Jerk's in both his. And I can tell at a glance you're a going to be a credit to the undertaking. And a minute afterward he was gone, and Jerk was sent by Mrs. Waggetts into the bar to polish up the tankards.
So now they have Jerry, as part of their team. Again, it is interesting that Jerry is still thinking of helping the captain. They really, well, no, they did read him well. Read him that he is someone who is probably willing to betray them, which means they're just as confident that they can take care of Jerry in case something like that happens. It is this story is so dark. Okay. Ooh. These next ones are shorter, thank goodness. Chapter 24. The Coffin Maker has a visitor. About noon of the same day, Captain Collier, in walking through the village, found himself passing Old Tree Cottage. The low-lying residence of Sexton Mipps, with its coffin shop facing the street and its small farmhouse behind. Attracted by a great noise of hammering, the captain stepped up to the window and glanced in. Rows of coffins lined the wall, and coffin planks were propped up against shelves containing everything imaginable. In the center of the shop stood two black trestled stools, and upon these funeral relics reposed a large coffin with no lid. Inside this gloomy thing sat Mr. Mipps. He was sitting straight up and hammering thus lustily upon the coffin's side, singing away with much spirit to the rhyme. Okay, there's more singing, my dear scholars. Give me 1 second while I come up with a tune. Oh, goodness gracious, this song's gonna be very dark. Apologies, my dear scholars. Oh, hammer, 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 and damn her, damn her, damn her, for I don't fear my wife now that she's dead. The captain, amused at the words, pushed open the casement and leant into the room. Whether the sexton saw him or not, the captain did not know. But the song changed immediately to a song of the sea. There's no swab like the captain, there's no swab like the captain, of all the swabs I've ever seen with a diddle 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 dee, no swab like the captain. A very appropriate song, Mr. Sexton, laughed the captain. Mipps turned round and surveyed the intruder. Why, knock me up solid, if it ain't the good captain. The gold of high noon to you, sir, though there ain't much gold in the sky today. I take it as a very friendly piece of impertinence that you should come and look me up so unexpected. Had I known of your arrival, I'd have had these grisly relics stowed away, for some folk has a distinct dislike to looking at their last dwelling houses. You're used to 'em, I suppose, by now, said the captain. Oh, love you, yes. I don't mind 'em. Some undertakers has fearful superstitions about coffins. Some won't get in 'em to measure 'em. Lord, I always does, and lies down inside 'em and pops the lid on the top to see if it's airtight. Awkward if the lid was to stick. Excuse me, my dear scholars. Sorry about that. You may well say that, 'cause once it did. But it weren't so much awkward as peaceful. For after I'd pushed and struggled for a power o' time, I just resigned myself to my fate, feeling thankful that at any rate I had had the privilege of being my own undertaker. Oh, that is dark.
I shall never forget my feelings when my last bit of breath came up and went out. It was just the sort of feelings you get when you drowns, only more so.
Private Maverick, the dead man? That is, yes, yes, he apparently, Mips almost buried himself alive on accident.
Cause when you drowns, you sees all the bad actions of your life a trooping before you. But getting buried alive is different. Cause you sees all the good actions what you've done. Mind you, things I'd clean forgot. Little acts of kindness what I thought could never have been recorded anywhere. Why, they all walked out, and I seemed to be gratefully comforted, 'cause I thought as how I was quite in the running for heaven. In fact, I was so pleased with my past self that I fairly kicked with delight, and that was the means of bringing me back to earth. 'Cause over went these trestles, and the jar I got knocked the stuck lid off. Oh, I've been near gone these many times, but never so near as that. For as you see, I was finished with the undertaker, having undertook myself, and I only had to be passed through the parson's hands and get knocked over the sconce with the sexton's shovel.
That's actually, by the way, what most advice people give if they ever got buried alive is don't try and push the lid. You kick out the sides.
A horrible experience, Mr. Sexton, returned the captain. It was, but I can tell you horribler. I take a pride in my business, same as you might in yours. That's why I went round the world. Oh, you've been round the world, have you? Said the captain. Not once, not twice, but many times. And do you know why? Buccaneering, said the captain casually. There you go, suspicious. Can't you mind your manners for 5 minutes? Can't you make an effort, when you're a gossiping with honest folk, to forget that there is dishonest ones? I never did see the like. Here we be chatting quite friendly, and forgetting our little differences, when you start accusing me of being a Captain Clegg or in England. Do I look like a bold pirate now? Looking at me straight, sitting up in this ear coffin, could you say that I looked like a swaggering gentleman or fortune? No, you couldn't. Very well, then. Why go and make unpleasant insinuations against a respectable sexton o' the realm? Mind you, I don't say as how I didn't come across some of that breed during my travels. And I don't say as how circumstances did at times make me work for 'em, but not for long. I held no sort of likes with the likes of them, and though some of them had most engaging ways, it was easy to see that they was all of 'em unundulated sinners. And swear, God bless your eyes, Captain, it made you blush like a woman to hear 'em.
More water. Mm.
And if it was not for gold and adventure you went, may I ask what tempted you abroad? Certainly, Captain. It was the love of my work, the zeal to have a look at other sextons, vergers, and undertakers, and see what they were a doing with the business.
Okay, that is one of the weakest excuses I've ever heard.
But Lord love you, Captain, I soon found as how funerals was done on different plains abroad. Why, I could tell you some things I'd seed with regard to burials abroad what owned make your flesh creep, though the sun is high in the heaven. Well, I've an hour to spare, Mr. Sexton. What do you say to coming along to the ship and enjoying a drink and a friendly pipe? I think I can do one better than that, thanking you kindly.
said the sexton, vaulting with marvelous dexterity out of the lofty coffin to the floor. For I've baccy, pipes, and good brandy all to hand. And if you care to spend an hour with Sexton Mipps and listen to his babbles, why light you or strike me dead, and gulp your spirits and settle your hulk in that there coffin, what hasn't got no passenger inside. We'll shut the window for it's a blowin' the fire out, and if you ain't cozy, well, it's not the fault of the sexton. Mr. Mipps, after busily providing his guests with the requisites for smoke and drink, and after splitting up a coffin plank to renew the fire, sprang back into the coffin, sitting snug with a glass of brandy and his church warden. The captain also had his ensconced on a coffin in the corner, and to the crackle of the split coffin plank upon the fire, the sexton began to yarn. Oh my goodness. I have a feeling that this next chapter, it's kind of wordy, is going to be kind of gruesome. I don't know how gruesome. Oh my goodness gracious. So the next two chapters, my dear scholars, is all about these really gruesome funerary practices. Are you ready for this? Julian 20, maybe. There is no maybe. There is do or do not. You are either ready or you are not. Julian 20, okay, fine. Private Maverick, not squirmish, are you? I'm not squirmish myself. But I know that some scholars are probably a little squirmish. Julian 20, let's do this thing. All right. I feel like this little bit of chapter, Private Maverick, squirm? No, squirmish. Squeamish. Oh, squeamish. No, I'm not squeamish. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading. I'm not squeamish. I just know some people are. Okay. Again, there's some of this is antiquated language. Is there a way I can? Is there a way I can put a warning up there? Maybe not. I don't know. But yes, this is a warning. This is gonna this these two chapters probably will have some antiquated worldviews, antiquated language, and the like. So there is a viewer discretion is advised here. Chapter 25. The Sexton Speaks. Funerals may be divided into three classes, for there be solemn funerals, there be grisly funerals, and there be funny ones. The funniest funeral I ever did see was in China. Do you know, Captain, they very seldom buries out there. They leave the blessed coffins above ground. The whole of the countryside is littered with them, and they has other very funny customs with funerals out there. When a fellow goes and dies, it's a devil of a business he has to go through before he gets fixed up final. Every family has their own particular priest, you understand, and that this particular priest is always a very sly sort of dog. The dead un is put into the coffin, and then the family pays their sly dog a considerable sum of money in exchange for very hard prayers what the sly dog makes for him to his gods.
He goes away and prays for weeks on end, asking his gods just where exactly the family ought to bury their dead on to enable him to get into heaven by the most convenient road. And as the sly dog gets paid all the time he's a prayin', you can bet your wig that he strings them prayers out to some length. I'll tell you about a certain Lin Fu Quan. Well, if it hadn't run this curtain down, as the stage players say, upon this chance little comedy, I believe he'd be drawing in a salary now for a fellow what died some 40 years ago. You see, it happened like this. I had dealings on with a smug-faced Chinese merchant what did business at Shanghai. When I was about to sail for the old country, old Smugface came to say how sorry he was I was going to leave, and hoped he had the pleasure of doing business with me again when I come back. We started talking, and I told him that I should very much like to see a Chinese funeral. And old Smugface said that he would gladly oblige me, because a very particular old uncle of his had died, and his funeral was shortly to take place. Where the upshot of it all was that I was invited to go up the river on Smugface's boat to Shu Chao, where he lived, and where his uncle had died, a city some 60 miles away or thereabouts. Oh boy, this is a lot of words in this accent. Oh, it's gonna be rough on my voice. Okay, anyway, more water so I can keep up with this. Have you ever been on one of them? Have you ever been on one of them large sampans, Captain? No? Well, it's a long sort of boat, fitted up very snug indeed, with flowers all trailing over the side, and all fixed up to look like an old homestead sailing on the river. After a very pleasant trip, and Lord love you, I did make that old Chinaman laugh telling him things, for I could speak their lingo a bit. Well, after a very pleasant trip, we gets to Shu Chao, and a rummy old place it was. It stood right on top of the river, with its old walls running straight down into the muddy water. It was a strong town, full of fighters and wealthy merchantmen. They was all pleasant to see me, and received me very proper. Most of 'em was a looking over the wall, a waving flags at me, and them as hadn't got none was a waving their pigtails. Again, this is an antiquated view, my dear scholars. I apologize. Of course, mind you, I had my enemies. Oh, yeah, never mind. Enemies. There was a sort of Lord Mayor of the place what I could see didn't quite approve of me being the 9 days wonder, for he was one of them jealous coves what don't like anyone to have a fling but himself. But I didn't mind him, for although I was only a little fellow, I had an eye like a vulture, a nose like a swordfish, and, when I was put out, a way of lashing myself about like a tiger's tail what used to scare them natives. Of course I wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant when you come to think of it, 'cause there I was the only Englishman among them millions of Jacks. But an Englishman's an Englishman all the world over, ain't he? Ain't he, Captain? And he wants a bit of squashing, and so that Lord Mayor discovered, 'cause one day I walked right up to him in the street and clacked my teeth at him so very loud that he ran home and never annoyed me no more. I have a feeling he's probably slightly exaggerating this story. But I was gonna tell you about that funeral. When we got to the front door of old Smugface's house, we discovered his uncle's coffin reposing upon the doorstep, very peaceful, but in a most awkward sort of position, 'cause you had to crawl over the blessed thing to get in and out or the door. Lord loves you, my most excellent Mips, cried old Smugface when he saw it. Why, this'll never do. My late lamented uncle, I forget the uncle's name, but it was Lin something, is fairly blocking up the fairway. Lin Fu Quan, I replied, you've hit it. For if we has to do steeplechase over that there thing every time we wants to get out of doors for a breather, well, we'll fair tire ourselves. And so old Smugface agreed, and he accordingly sent for the family parson. Well, old Sly Dog arrived, and of all the fat, self-satisfied coves I've ever seed, he was the king. It was easy to see as how he made a good thing out of his job.
You know, I might have been wrong about this chapter being about gruesome funerals. Might have been completely wrong. I apologize. I need another drink of water. Oh, my goodness gracious. I feel like these two chapters are kind of filler for the book.
And so old Smugface agreed, and he accordingly sent for the family parson. Well, old Sly Dog arrived, and of all the fat, self-satisfied coves I ever seed, he was the king. It was easy to see how he made a good thing out of his job. My old friend Smugface began telling him how awkward it was having a coffin right across the front door. And old Sly Dog said as how he was very sorry, but it was just in that place what the gods had told him to put it. Don't you think that if we were to offer sacred crackers to the gods that they might find as how they'd been mistook? Suggested Smugface. I'll have to try, old bereaved one, answered Sly Dog.
Oh my goodness, I can't maintain this voice. It's really hard. My dear scholars, is it okay if I read this in my regular voice? Because there is so much text here. So much text. And it's all him talking. Julian 20, yes, please, it is okay. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to read it in my regular voice. So, this is Mips talking. I'm going to do it in my regular voice because I cannot maintain the his piratey voice for very long, the way I am. So my friend unlocks his treasure chest and forks out a regular king's ransom, which he gives to the priest to buy crackers just to persuade the gods to change their minds. I tell you that if old Sly Dog had really spent all that money in crackers, why, gunpowder plot wouldn't have been in it. Anyhow, the priest left with the money, and we spent the next few days a climbing over that inconvenience whenever we wanted to go out or indoors. You must understand also that coffins out in China aren't the neat sort of contrivance like we've got here. Oh Lord love you, no. For them Chinese ones beat all the great cumbersome family coaches I ever see in the coffin line. Well, in a few days back comes Sly Dog looking more prosperous than ever. It was very plain to me that he'd been having a good time with that money, and if he had spent 5 minutes in prayers to his gods, I should be very much surprised. Willie tells my old friend to turn out of the house for that night because the gods had promised to visit him night if he stayed all alone along of the coffin. I wasn't particular about where we stopped, though I could see Smugface didn't like turning out his house. But I felt annoyed to see how very easily he knuckled under to whatever the priest said. So we went away, as I say, for that night. Now the nights come up cold in China, and we both got two very snivelly colds what had been brought on by the droughts through not being able to shut that front door. Next morning Sly Dog came round to say that the gods would visit the house every night and see just where they could order the coffin to be moved to, and in the meantime Sly Dog was to spend his days and nights in the house. A comfortable time he had of it, you may be sure, for my friend had got a house well stored with very good things. So this does sound like a little bit of a con job. Kintron, sounds like you're a little sniffly too. I think it's allergies. I think that's what it is because, as far as I can tell, I don't have any symptoms of anything. Just really coughing and a little bit sniffly, but that's about it. And a lot of very dry throat. Also, hello there, Kintron. Welcome. I had to stop reading Mip's voice because this is a long chapter with a lot of talking from Mips. And the next chapter is a very long chapter with a lot of talking from Mips. At the end of a week, Sly Dog comes around to say that the gods had decided to move the coffin, that he had seen their orders carried out. So after giving him more money, much to my indignation, for I couldn't bear to see my friend imposed upon, we left him and set off for the house. And where do you think that dirty priest had put that coffin? Where? Queried the captain. Why, in the bed where I was going to sleep. This roused the devil in me, and I determined. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Kintron. We might not read as many chapters as we usually do tonight. This roused the devil in me, and I determined to get even with that gent. But I had to think things over very carefully. You see, if I objected to sleeping in the same bed as the coffin, my friend might think I thought myself superior to sleeping with his uncle, and that I knew would offend him, because the Chinese seem to bear a most ridiculous respect towards their dead relations. So I decided that come what might, I would certainly sleep there, and at the same time I hit upon a scheme for the undoing of that priest. Next morning I woke after a very pleasant sleep alongside that coffin, and felt much refreshed, though, of course. I wasn't going to let him know that. When my friend asked me how I had slept, I told him very badly, because all through the night the old uncle in the coffin kept waking up and asking if I would go and fetch the priest. So Smugface sends round at once the Sly Dog for me to tell him all about it. Did the late lamented uncle of this bereaved man really converse with thee in the night, old Englishman? Asked the priest, trying to look very knowing. I was longing to reply by giving him one in his mouth, but I pulled myself together and answered very respectively, Of a truth did the late lamented uncle of this bereaved one, jerking my thumb towards Smugface, converse with my contemptible self in the same hours, small hours of the dawn previous to the inestimable crowing of the invaluable cock upon the temple roof. They are really going for that stereotypical. This is very stereotyped, my dear scholars. I am sorry. Of a truth did he converse with me, and say unto me, I could speak their lingo very well in those days. Send for the wise and learned priest of the family, and tell him that I have much to say unto him on matters of most heavenly import, and command him to sleep upon the very spot where thou art now sleeping, O foreigner of the white face. Let him sleep there tomorrow night alone. Let none other be in the house, for it is to the priest alone that I can confide my troubles. Urge also my dutiful nephew to pay large sums of money to the priest, so that he may not fail to come to me in my sore and troubled hour. Well, of course, they all thought it very wonderful, and provided with more money by my friend, the priest went off to sleep that night with the coffin. I pretended to be tired that night, and I retired to my sleeping room early. So they thought, for we were spending that night with the friends of my friend. But no sooner had I fastened the entrance of my room than I had got out of the window, which looked out upon the city wall, and climbing along the parapet, I safely reached the ground, and set off at a good run to the empty house, getting there well before the priest. Now, I had told the merchant to be sure and see the priest safe in the house himself, for I feared that fright might keep the rascal away. The merchant promised to do this, for I believed that by this time he was losing confidence in the family confessor. As soon as I got into my old bedroom, I opened the coffin, lifted out the corpse, stripping him of his funeral clothes, which I donned. Then I hid the corpse in a dark corner of the room behind a screen, and got into the great coffin. Now, the lids were not screwed down in China, but merely allowed to rest upon the top. Presently, I hears the priest arrive, and my friend bids him good night and leaves. Gotta open up another bottle of water. Mm, okay, where was I? Oh yeah, because he comes promptly into the room, counts out his fresh money on top of the coffin itself, and then curls himself up alongside it upon the mattress. Just as soon as I heard him beginning to breathe heavily, I pushed open the coffin lid, calling upon him by name in most supplical tones. He woke up, of course, and sits upon his side of the bed and looked at the coffin. There he beheld me a sittin' up inside the coffin a looking at him, only of course he didn't think it was me, but the dead uncle. Well, he was so frightened that I just had an easy walk over him. I jumped at him, I kicked him, I made him swear that he would return every penny of his false gotten gains to the merchant, and then if the merchant refused, he was to give it to the white stranger that sojourned there, and finally, after thrashing the stuffing out of him, I popped him bodily into the coffin, jammed the corpse from behind the screen in on top of him, and over 'em both I closed the lid. Then, seeing as how he was unconscious through the drubbing he had had, and the awful fright, I left him, and went home to bed at the house of the friends of my friend, getting in as I had got out through the window. Kintron. Well, next morning the sly dog turned up, and said that the gods had visited him in the night, and that the coffin was to be buried 12 feet deep in the merchant's field, and that he was so overjoyed at having conversed so very pleasantly with the gods that he must insist on returning the gold to the merchant. This the good merchant of course refused to accept. So the priest was obliged, according as he had been commanded, to hand it to the white stranger what sojourned with the merchant, and who was your humble servant, captain. That day I went back to Shanghai loaded with presents not only from my friend, but from the friends of my friend, at whose house we had sojourned, and with every gold piece out of that sly dog's pocket. And that's the story of the funniest funeral I was ever at. And there ain't many what ever seen a funnier one, I should say. Mr. Mipps finished his glass of brandy, and jumping out of the coffin refilled it again, relit his pipe at the fire, and vaulted back again with such spirit that the black trestles rocked backwards and forwards. He addressed the captain again with a yarn, which he called the grisliest funeral he was ever at, which was a tale about the Parsees and one of the towers of silence. You know what? I'm going to leave it up to you, my dear scholars. My voice is a little rough tonight on account of the coughing and the allergies. Should I read the next chapter? The next chapter is also very wordy. Or should we stop a little bit earlier tonight? Just to let my voice rest. What do you think, my dear scholars? I am at your beck and call. Unit 20, you can stop now till next time. I have one vote for stop. What say you, the rest of my dear scholars? What do you think? Private Maverick, save the voice, read more next week. Gotta save the voice. Alright, I will stop here then. We only managed to get through 3 chapters, but they were very long, very wordy chapters, and we had a good discussion too. Um, but yes, I apologize for my voice. Hopefully by next week it will sound better. But things are getting interesting. So we do know now for an absolute fact that there are smugglers on Romney Marsh. We do know Mr. Mipps is a member. We do know Mr. Rash was a member at one point. Now he is not a member anymore. But we don't know who the head of the smugglers are. That's going to be an interesting mystery to have. So then, next week, if everything goes according to plan, remember that's always the caveat. Um, we will be doing more of the last campfire on Monday, and then on Thursday, we will be reading hopefully more chapters of Doctor Sin. Let's see who we can raid tonight. Just in case. Okay. Um, you know what? I see Cider Martin is reading tonight. Uh, oh, it's a post-birthday story stream. Interesting, reading weird and spooky tales. Um, let's go visit uh Cider Martin. And yes, I think that's a good idea. Another fellow reader. So then, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.